Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Sir.
You there? Weren't you with us on Friday?
Yeah.
Good for you. All right. I did send you just this morning the comments for your proposal that we already went over.
Okay.
All right. Did you have specific questions? Because I'm pretty much going to be going over the same thing. And while we're just the two of us now, before anyone else gets here, did you have any specific questions or concerns?
Well, if I might, um,
Oh, it's up to you. I mean, I'm glad you're here, and I'm going to go do the same thing. I'm going to go over at least a couple of the, as long as everyone shows up, a couple of the other proposals. And I think that, that's helpful because you can see the different approaches that other students are taking, and may help you narrow those parameters. Um, and then I'm going to go quickly again review that PowerPoint. I posted the two PowerPoints up on Omnibox as well. And you'll notice that I put up another assignment for the final draft of this proposal, which will be due, I think I put it for next Saturday night, when I'm going to want all the final drafts in, so that I'll go over it one more time, more comments, put a mark on it, and then we can move to the next stage. How are you finding it?
I think to narrow the parameters, it's kind of hard since it's a USA.
Hmm.
We have a lot of problems there, so it's kind of easy to just like generalize the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're taking as much time as we are with these proposals, because once those parameters are clearly defined, then things are going to go a lot easier because you're going to be very focused on what you have to do. If the parameters are too broad, you're gonna find, especially when you really start getting into the research, that there's just so much information, and trying to decide what you're going to use can really be overwhelming. Um, Trust me, as someone who has been doing this for a long time, not to teaching, but as a student and researching and so on, um, it's so important to be able to have a clear focus, so you don't drift into that um, overwhelming, muddy water of research, which, especially in this day and age, when we have so many, um, so much available to us through the internet. And we're going to talk about that next week as we get closer to the annotated bibliographies of ensuring that you find specific and relevant peer-reviewed articles. It's so important. It speaks to your credibility, if you will, when you're presenting a report or in any kind of academic or work-related environment, that you show that you can differentiate between what is relevant and academic sources versus the plethora of often disinformation that is out there. We see that more and more as with social media and people latching on to unreliable sources to shape the way that they view and analyze and respond to, well, pretty much everything. And it's a problem, a fairly big problem, actually.
But if I narrow my parameters, I feel like I'm gonna change my topic again.
Well, again, there is an opportunity to do that. You can make that choice, but this is the week to do it. So if you are going to change your topic, I would suggest that maybe run something by me early in the week, right? We can set up a, one-on-one Zoom meeting so that we can make sure you're on the right track. All right, and I can work with you with that to help you define those parameters much more clearly. We can do a lot of that together. We just have to coordinate our time to do that. But I would really suggest, if that is something you're contemplating, move on it quickly, because I really want these ready by next Sunday. All right. So when I look at them next, because I put the deadline for the final drafts for next Saturday, so that by this class time, hopefully I will have a chance to look over them, at least briefly, and make sure that we're all on the right track. Okay.
Okay.
So just reach out to me. All right. Serene, Alessandro, how are you?
Hi, good yourself?
Good, good. Okay, we're just waiting for Chelsea's on board now. And there comes Milton. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one person who's missing. I don't remember who it is. But... All right. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing today, if you noticed this morning, I sent you your proposals back with commentary. No grades. Everyone has the opportunity to do a rewrite. I've posted another assignment, which is basically the same assignment, but now entitled Final Draft, so that you can go over those comments. We're going to go over some of them today, and get me a final draft proposal in by next Saturday. Okay, and then we're ready to go. But the importance of these proposals, I'm sure you've realized how much I've been emphasizing that. And that's why we're taking as much time as we are with it. Because I really, once you get these tight and focused, everything else will be so much easier, especially when you're going into that messy world of research. Okay. Before we get started, any general questions? I don't know if any of you had a chance to look over the comments. I just posted them again earlier this morning, but I'm going to, with your permission, I'd like to put a couple of them up on the screen and go over them in detail. This is what I did on Friday with the students who came to the Friday session. I think it'll be helpful because I can then expand a little bit on the comments themselves and really give you a clearer idea of where I want you to refine those first drafts. And then we'll briefly go over a second PowerPoint that is related to the final report, which I've posted. I've posted 2 PowerPoints this morning up on the Omnibox. Again, those are geared towards that final report in terms of structure. And again, they're, as I'll explain later, they're, you can modify those within reason. But any general questions that anyone wants to bring up now? We're good? And everyone can hear me? And I'm not gonna...
Yeah.
Okay. Chelsea, you can't hear it? You can't hear?
Oh, yeah, I can hear. It's just questions for now.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, and as always, I ask every time, if you want to turn on your cameras, do so. If you don't, I understand, especially on a Sunday morning. I just always ask because it's just me being selfish. I look at so many empty squares all week long. But so what I'd like to do, and again, as long as you're okay with this, is look at your specific proposals with my comments and go over them. Is anyone would rather I didn't put theirs up? And it's okay, but I think it is helpful. We're good? Okay, so Alessandro, do you mind if I start with you?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to put it up and you'll see. Let's see if I can find this. Okay, this isn't. Oops. Sorry. So I put them in a. And they're not here. Okay, hold on. Bear with me. I got to pull them out of the folder, I guess. Okay. There we go. Okay, that should do it. Okay, everyone can see that, right? Good? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, you'll all be seeing similar comments like this is how I do it. This is why I really like or prefer the Word documents when you send in anything to me, okay? So I'm just going to go through this quickly and then look at some of the things specifically. You have a foundation to work with here, and this is the issue with you know, on some level with everyone. It's just too general, okay? What you really want to get to at this point is what specific actions are you going to take? Okay, so how will wearing masks and physical distancing help decrease the spread of the coronavirus in Montreal, the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic in Canada? That's a huge topic, right? We have a lot, and keep in mind, Alessandro, there's a lot of policy already there. So what are you recommending specifically that we do that is going to improve the situation, right? And of course, you want to be thinking, as I put this up here, you know, your audience. You must always be thinking of your audience, right? The decision makers who are going to facilitate your ability to get the specific actions done. You need to be more specific regarding what those actions are, all right? Always remember as well, even in your proposal, right? Up to date, Montreal has around 30,000 COVID-19 cases. So two things with this. One is you need a source, okay? Where are you getting your information? And around, you really want to try to avoid that. How many cases do we have? All right, is it, you know, it's just too general, and it's not specific, right? There's around 7 billion people on the planet. When you're writing this type of report, the data is vitally important. You're dealing with people. You have to anticipate that your audience wants specific numbers. You know, the example I use, you know, how big is it? It's about the size of a bread box. You guys probably don't remember bread boxes to keep the bread fresh. You know, which is, you know, what, this specific. Okay, so 30,322. Right down to, you know, the most specific information you can get, and always, even in the proposal, at this stage, I'm not going to be a stickler for how you're citing your source, but you need to include it somewhere here, right? You don't have to do footnotes at this point. We're going to talk about that. You're going to certainly need to have proper citations for your final report. And when we do the annotated bibliographies, we're going to go over that in quite some detail. But at this point, you still need to tell me where you're getting your information. Down here, one big problem with masks is all the waste that it's producing. That's unclear. Okay, what waste? Right? You have to, and you want to be as specific as possible. So whatever you had in mind in terms of that waste, what is it? Again, always try to put yourself in the shoes of your audience. Anticipate objections. Anticipate a really no-nonsense type of person at the other end who's going to challenge you on everything. That way you get to anticipate the objections and address them before they're brought up. Very important. It's something we're going to talk a lot about throughout the semester. It's certainly when we get towards that final project and those oral presentations, right? You don't want, after your oral presentation, for people, your audience, to be then challenging you on things that you're not prepared to respond to. And ideally, you nip it in the bud by addressing them during the presentation or in the report, so that at the end, any objections they may have been contemplating, you've taken care of. Okay. As well, down here, you say it shouldn't be mandated by the government, but by the institution. Okay, so what institution? Right? Again, being specific. Will these institutions have the authority to enforce the mandate? Okay, you have to, again, be thinking about this. This is, I mean, it's obviously a very topical issue, Alessandro, but there's a lot of information out there. So you want to make sure you're savvy to what's being done and be more focused and clear as to what you are proposing to do, right? Remember, the difference here is you're not just writing an essay where you're analyzing something. It's a report that is looking to take action to improve a situation or resolve a problem or a combination thereof, okay? Again, what is the specific issue you want to address and improve, and what are the specific actions? You'll see I write specific a lot, concise, focused. You're going to see me, those words all over all the time, okay? And I'll always be pushing you to be more specific, always. It's again, I think I've mentioned this to you. I'm not looking for perfection. I don't really believe in perfection. I believe in progress, working towards that goal. So basically here, you've got a lot to work with. It's a good foundation, but it's too vague. Okay, so be thinking about what specific actions you are going to try to get mandated. All right, and how do you go about doing that? Who are the people that can enforce and implement those actions that you're calling for? Okay?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So,
Thank you.
all right, keep that in mind. All right, you'll see we're going to look at the others as well. You'll find most of my comments are very similar for all of you. Stop sharing that. And Chelsea, can we look at yours?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay. All right. So overall, again, good foundation for the proposal project. Let me just get this my editing tool here. And much of the information, and this was common with most of you with this. Much of the information can be incorporated into the final project. However, much of this is too general, and be careful of this, Chelsea. Personal. Okay, so when you start using "as I get older," I grow and leave, you can incorporate that, and it is important in terms of the personal, and we'll look at this a bit when I put up the PowerPoint, in terms of establishing your credibility, right? Because again, part of what you're doing here is you have a report, you want these actions to be taken. As your audience, I'm going to say, well, what are your qualifications? Why am I going to trust you to take this on? Especially these are, important big projects. So you need to establish that. And the best way you can establish that at this stage is by demonstrating that you are savvy to how to do proper research, to bring on the right people on board, to a certain extent delegate, and to write well, which shows, again, an elevated education and all that stuff. Credibility, ethos is really important. You can see, you can even put a section, and I've done this often with these types of reports, where you can have a section in the final report where you specifically address your qualifications to take this project, take on this project. But how you phrase it, you want to be a little careful with, right? Because if it becomes too personal, then it can lose for your audience the objectivity, right? Think of it like this: they're not interested in you, they're interested in the project. Okay, it's not that they don't care about you or anything like that, but they want you, get to it. Okay, so all this is good information that can be incorporated into the final report, but not necessary for the proposal. The proposal is, here, I want to know whether I'm interested in this in the first few seconds as I'm reading it. Okay?
Okay. Straight to the point. essentially.
Exactly, straight to the point. I mean, this is why we're doing 2 drafts, because this is how we start everything. We're getting our thoughts together, and we're trying to help develop our focus. All right, so it's all good, and all is going to be valuable in terms of when you incorporate in some manner into your final report. But at this stage, it's bang bang. Treat it like the business world. No nonsense. Get to the point. I'm a busy person. That's how you want to look at your audience. Busy. I have no time to waste. You've got 2 minutes to convince me to turn the page and get to the next level. Okay. All right. It's important to develop that way of thinking for this, and that will also be reflected in how you write. You want to be quite succinct in the phrasing that you do. No wordiness. The example I've always used in other classes, and I think I mentioned to you, I did my Blackboard thing. A blackboard is a blackboard. You don't have to be elaborate describing how beautifully shaped, rectangularly shaped, and the beautiful gray hue that shines when you wipe it down with the eraser. Okay, and unless that's relevant, no lofty, wordy descriptions. Right to the point. Again, what are the specific actions you will be advocating for, and where do you plan on directing those actions? Who is your audience? Now, are you looking to organize protests? A lot of you have topics that lend themselves to this, or as a possible protest if things don't go your way. Okay, there's ways to go about it. You have to, if you're going to be incorporating or advocating for protests, what's involved with that? How are you going to organize that? Where are you going to conduct the protests? And with protests, you have to get a permit in the city to do so, right? Otherwise, they can shut you down. So you want to be thinking in those ways. You don't want to just have some social media gathering, let's go and protest, because then your protest could legally be shut down, and that may not be advantageous to what you're setting out to do. And who will those protests be aimed at? Are you proposing some kind of tax reform? Would that involve lobbying the government? Okay. Or do you want to organize some kind of a task force, community task force, that can approach then the civic officials, school administrators, and politicians? Okay, these are the kinds of details. Okay, they're there. I mean, obviously, you're not having the time to go thoroughly and fully explore them, but you want them there, right? The exploration and the details of them will come as you continue with your research. Okay, so basically what you have here, Chelsea, is all this is basically kind of background information, personal information, but here's where you really get into it, right? This proposition would allow businesses to expand and be known for helping and giving opportunities to those needs. The Quebec education system should include a specific section in the application of international students to offer them direct connections to the workforce. There's your what you want to achieve. A little more about how you're going to go about getting there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, what do I have here? Just want to make sure. Again, pull this down. Small amount of tax. Okay. Again, what does that mean? Okay, small amount of tax. Who's being taxed? What constitutes small? Be specific. If you don't have the specifics at this stage, you still want to phrase it in a way that acknowledges that. A tax increase in certain sectors will be necessary. And then if you really at this stage haven't done enough research to see how that could unfold, you can say that in the proposal. The specifics of the tax increase, it will be determined. All right, this is the proposal stage. You'll want that for your final, but be careful how you word it, because once you start saying tax increases, you anticipate objections, right? You're going to have people saying, "Whoa, no, we don't do tax increases because we'll never get that through. People will get crazy." Okay, so it's more and how you phrase it. Tax increase. This is a little trick of rhetoric. Or tax reform. Sounds less threatening. You hear this with politicians and everything. It's a difference between defund the police and reform the police department. One is very extreme, and there's a lot of pushback and objections because it's unclear and it seems a little over the top. The other, well, yes, we'll get to the specifics of what that reform involves, but you're not scaring people unless you want to. But that's tricky, right? If you go that route, then you're going on a very extreme level of action. I mean, you're more than welcome to do that, but then it has to be consistent. Okay. Again, think of the task force. A lot of you have projects that lend themselves to developing some kind of a task force, and what that allows is who are the people that are going to be in this task force, and that's where you can draw on your social science disciplines, right? The psychology, the psychologists involved, politicians who would be involved, all those things can be brought in. And then you want to even take that a step further. Look for specific people if you're going to develop a task force that you would want on that task force. And if they're not going to be paid, if you're going to organize a task force, say in Montreal, but you need people from BC, that's part of your budget. You're not going to ask them to pay their own way, so you're going to have to figure out, where do I get funding for this? And funding, which we will be talking more about, but because a lot of you have these types of projects that, there's no specific place necessarily for all the funding you need. It's a GoFundMe. So you're going to set up a GoFundMe. Anything and everything is possible as long as it is specific to the end game of what you want to achieve. Okay, so try to incorporate these kinds of details in the proposal. Be careful again with the writing. I'm not really fixated on the writing at this point. We'll talk about that when we get closer to the final projects, but what diction is, your word choice. Students are, tuition fees of international students are insanely high. Insanely. That means insane. That means out of mind. I understand what you're trying to say, but it's a bit too colloquial. All right. Again, for your audience, tuition fees for international students are too high compared to local students. Don't try to embellish. Don't you try to avoid that politician's trap. Okay. And again, with wordiness, just to point it out, and this is again for all of you, companies should take into consideration of their academic, again, try to think about, eliminating words that are unnecessary and make it more concise in your writing. And this again is with everyone, myself included. That's what you pick up on when you do your revisions. Okay, that's why always anticipating giving yourself enough time to go and tighten up the writing itself. That this is separate from the content. This is the actual writing issues. Okay, I'm just dropping that in there now. We're going to talk more about it, especially when you guys do your literary review for me. That it gives me a better chance to really focus in on the writing and write it in a particular manner that lends itself to this type of academic project. Okay. And again, this is one possible action. Think about all the actions. Think action to be taken. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And let's see. Serene, we'll go with yours. Is that okay? Yes? You unmuted yourself, but I can't hear you. Yes, Serene?
Hello?
Serene, yes?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can we look
Okay,
at yours?
perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Oops. Go. Oh, yes. Yeah. Come back and remembering these as I went through them. Okay, so again, we'll go a little quicker now because a lot of this is the same thing that I've been talking about. Source, right? Total of 99 billion a year. Where are you getting that? All right, that's the first thing anyone's going to ask. All right, because we're skeptical. Anticipate that your audience is skeptical. They follow social media and all what goes on there. They're not into that kind of embellishments. Where'd you get this? Is estimated to be $150 billion a year global industry, estimated by who? Okay, again, always remember, even in the proposal, you're getting these numbers from somewhere. And again, I'm not going to be a stickler with how you cite it. Just put, according to such and such a document. We'll talk more about the citations later on. Avoid generalizations. Moreover, it is hard to bring this message to young kids who are all over social media and do not know right from wrong. Okay? You're making an absolute generalizations. You're basically saying that none of them know right for wrong. Some do. Right? This is phrasing, but it's off-putting to the type of audience that I'm asking you to have this geared towards. Right? When again, it speaks to your credibility, it speaks to your ability to be concise. So you can say all of them, and many do not know right from wrong is the easy fix. But also be careful about how that kind of phrasing, what that implies. If you have a consistent tendency to exaggerate and embellish, then your audience may say, I think there's an agenda here that goes beyond just fixing this problem. All right. Again, it's a slippery slope, but you want to be thinking that way. And again, something you pick up in your revisions. Again, source. Let's see, important and broad title that must be educated to all young children. Be careful of your phrasing here. Okay, again, it has to do with sentence structure, and we'll talk more about that as we progress. I don't want to. I mean, you've all taken English courses, so a lot of it will be repetitive, and I think most of this is just a matter of doing revisions. Okay, more specific. What solutions? I want to be able to address solutions in order to create awareness. Okay, more specific. able to restrict certain aspects of social media. Okay, how? Right, these are all, again, it's all great foundational stuff, but I'm looking for details, not an elaboration of the details. That'll come as you prepare your final reports. But I want to have something here, otherwise it's just, okay, I don't know where you're going. Yeah, again, this, as I was saying, you know, in previous ones as well, be attentive to your writing in terms of wordiness. I will deeply explain what sexual exploitation is. I will explain what sexual exploitation is. I mean, deeply. It's like the word very, right? I'm very hungry, as opposed to what? Very, very hungry, as opposed to very, very, very. I think we talked about this before. So again, so many of these types of words can just be eliminated. Succinct, bang, right to the point. So again, what specific actions can you take? You have a strong foundation. It's a really good topic. But it, as you've been hearing me say with, you know, pretty much everyone, it's too general. Okay, define your parameters, specific actions, okay, specific focus. Who is the audience? And if you know your audience, if you know where you're gearing this project for, it will help you be more specific and focused. Okay? Again, you're always looking in terms of your audience, who are the decision makers? You're not trying to write an op-ed piece here for the New York Times. You want things to be done, who can get them done. That's who I'm addressing. Okay, we had one of the other ones from the Friday session was, you know, talking about, the general topic was climate change, and specifically to make TAV College more climate friendly, introducing solar paneling and things like that. She has a very specific target. It would be TAV administrators, right? They're the ones who can make the decisions as to whether or not they want to invest money in this and so on. So that's really important. What are the changes you are seeking? And again, specifics. Once again, the task force comes up. Many of you have projects that lend themselves to putting together a task force, and then where that task force will go in terms of lobbying specific media, in your case, media outlets, to change their policy. How are you going to get them to change their policy? What will that involve? And what are the specifics, as much as you can at this point, of that policy change? You have to remember, when you're doing your research, you can't try to impose things that you don't have a legal basis to do, right? So you have to persuade, and that's where the social science disciplines come in. If you develop a task force, if you have experts coming in explaining why this is important, okay? Are you targeting educators? Which ones? And you should focus on a particular municipality. Okay, so that way you can look at the exact personnel you want to engage. Okay, that's again for pretty much all of you. Keep it to something like Montreal, even a borough of Montreal. Okay, something that is tangible and manageable. Okay. All right. And that just leaves Milton. Milton, can I put yours up?
Yeah, with no problem.
Okay.
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes. Yes, Serene. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry to go back. I just wanted to know, can I put examples in my proposal?
Absolutely. I mean, again, yes, but make sure that they're relevant, obviously, and you want the proposal still to be relatively short, right? It's like a CV. In most cases, if you hand in a 10-page CV, as someone who worked in management in a number of different places, we don't want to look through 10 pages. Okay, so you can use examples just to in a manner that informs your audience of your seriousness and that you are focused. But the elaboration on that, it's for you to determine, but be careful that that your proposal isn't too long. And all those examples, of course, can then be incorporated into the final project.
Okay.
But absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Milton. Let's get yours up. Oops. There we go. Okay. Okay, so it's going to be a bit similar. Again, we'll go through it quickly. Great topic. We've discussed this, Milton, right? I like it. I like all, by the way, I like all your topics. I mean, the one thing that I'm really pleased with is you're all on the right track. And that's really good. It makes a big difference. So you have a sound topic for your project. What is needed, again, I know I'm sounding a bit like a broken record and you're anticipating this now. Specifics. What actions are you planning to take? And who will these actions be directed towards? So again, with yours in particular, Milton, are you advocating for a change in the school curriculum? It seems that's the way where you're heading. I like that you defined your parameters to just grade 9. Okay, that really gives you a focus. Curious as to why you chose grade 9. I'm sure you have reasons predicated on your experiences in the social science disciplines. And of course, you'll want to, in the proposal, but certainly as we get towards the final project, why are you concentrating on grade 9? I think I know why. But you'll probably want to elaborate on that. And that's where, again, you'll be drawing on your previous experiences with the social sciences. Grade 9, obviously, is an age where there's a lot going on that relates to your topic in these kids. Okay, but you want to make that clear. No need to elaborate too much on it, but just, you know, get to that. How will you go about implementing such a change in the curriculum? That's a tough one. It's an ambitious project. The educational system and the control that the province has over so much of the educational system and what is being taught and how it's being taught is really ingrained. Again, lends itself to a task force that would be able to confront government officials in the Department of Education to implement some kind of a change. And again, force that would then lobby for the Minister of Education in Montreal or Quebec. I think you'd probably have to, even if you're just specific to Montreal, you may have to deal with Quebec, okay, because they have that power and you can address that issue, right? And maybe, you know, part of the actions is that more control should be given to the individual municipalities and that there shouldn't be this blanket overlooking everything that Quebec does. But it's Quebec we live in. So keep in mind, you have to anticipate the pushback on something like that. Are you looking to mobilize educators to demand change? Okay, these are the types of specifics that should be included in the proposal. Okay, you see where I'm going with this, Milton? I'm glad you put on your camera so I can see if you're responding or not. Look at it in that way. What specific actions are going to be, again, the difference between analyzing our educational system, in particular in relation to sexual education for grade 9 students. That's a great essay. You can gather, and you have to do a lot of the similar things in terms of your research. You really need to know your topic, but you take it one step further than that for the report. What can we do to change this? What are the actions, specific actions that can be done? Okay. Yeah, again, I mentioned this earlier. Watch out for the colloquialisms. I see the style that you write in, Milton. And you write very well. You all write well. But again, you got to tailor it for your audience, right? The way you're going to write something for one audience is going to be different than another. And you're dealing with now, in your case, probably people who are engaged with governmental issues, and they're no nonsense. So our province is playing grounds for the next 100 years. And it sets a tone because we're getting that right off the bat. Try to be a little more analytic, a little more professional. Not that there's a time and a place for this, but be attentive to it. If it's your style and you want to continue it because you think it has a rhetorical effect that you are looking for, then be consistent. Okay, and think of your audience. And other thing, again, this is just little writing issues. Attempts to utterly abolish. It's redundant. If you're abolishing it, it's abolished. Utterly abolish. I'm going to abolish, and just, you see what I'm saying? Little things, and this is for all of you. Be attentive. Again, it's the type of thing you get in your revisions. I don't need utterly there. Okay, to abolish these old dated. Abolish is more than enough. Okay, sexuality education has been proven. Okay, source. Right, you use a word like it's been proven. Okay, so by whom?
I wasn't sure if I needed to put in my sources because I have all my sources. If it needed to be put into my proposal, or if it needed to be put into later on.
It obviously it has to be in later on. It doesn't have to be in the proposal unless you're saying things like this.
Okay.
Because if you're saying it's been proven, again, anticipate objections. I'm going, by who? I'm not doubting it. I know what you're trying to do here, but you want to anticipate that your audience may be resistant, will be looking for things that they can jump on. That's anticipating objections, right? So if you're going to say it's been proven, things like that, or if you're going to say 99%, that's referring to some of the others we saw, then you want, and you can, at this stage, you don't have to do Chicago style citation or APA or anything like that. Just put it here. It's been proven by this source to have beneficial. That's all it takes. But yes, if you say things like been proven, if you're saying things that seem to be suggesting some kind of absolute, okay?
I was also scared that the way I started writing this was more in terms of an essay instead of a research proposal assignment, because I was, as I was submitting it, I was saying, I gave a lot of background history about where Quebec started from and why it's so why people are so almost prude about this stuff, and I wasn't sure if that was the proper approach in terms of introducing my.
It's really good stuff that you'll include in your final report, right? When you go into background, right? You're gonna probably have a background section. You all will. For the proposal, again, you want to keep it concise. So you can touch on it. You don't need, and this again is for all of you. You don't need as much in the proposal. I understand it because we're just starting this. And it's great that you do this. All of you did this to some extent because it shows that you're thinking and you're gathering your thoughts and you're drawing on your experiences and your knowledge in laying a really great foundation. But now we're looking at very analytic documents, a proposal in that professional sense. So you can touch on that background information, but you certainly don't need to put as much. You can put it in, and you should put it in your final project in the background information area. Okay. So again, sources that we already talked about it when you're making these types of, and you can get around. I mean, you have your sources, so I think you're going to be fine. If you're not sure, just look at the way you're phrasing things. If it's suggesting that, wait a minute, how would you know that? It's a fine line with citations and sources. Because how much information there is doesn't need citations because it's general knowledge, right? You have to be careful with this. And we're going to talk a lot about this when we get to the annotated bibliographies and so on. And when you start doing your research, you know, what do you have to cite? Because if we really break that down, and this is one of the dangers of academic research, everything we know we got from some source. We can trace it all the way back to when we were infants, okay? So how much do we have to source? I went through this a number of years ago where I almost felt like I was going to lose my mind, because I started having this conversation with one of my professors saying, yeah, but you know, I learned this 5 years ago. I don't remember where I learned this. Do I have to cite it? So be careful. It can really spin out of control. You'll know, especially with this type of thing, anything that's data driven, anything that had to have come from some kind of specific data research needs to be cited. Okay. And again, here, more needs to be done in order to educate our youth, specifically students in grade 9, about sex. Absolutely, and I'm nitpicking here. I know it, but this is, you know, I at this stage I want to throw everything here. What more? Be more specific. Okay, it's again, this is phrasing, right? And again, in the context. So the more, the suggestion is more than anything you've said here. You understand? This is a writing issue. So you have to be careful with that. It's the type of thing you can get away with in a conclusion, right? Because you've already shown more than what I've discussed here still needs to be done, but this is a good place to start. But when you say more needs to be done, what more? Okay, so again, it's a writing thing. And specifically for this type of document, clear, concise, bang to the point. Don't start dropping feelers. But I understand, this is why, you know, none of these are marked. This is why we're all doing another draft. Okay, it's to get it there. By the way, they're all, I really very, very pleased with what I saw. I could mark all of these as they are right now with the understanding that it's the first thing and everyone's going to do fine. Do not worry about your grades. Everyone in this class is going to do well. I promise. I will be here to ensure it. If anyone doesn't, it's going to be on me. I mean, unless you really just, you know, drop out or something like that. Okay, but that's what I'm here for, and I'm very pleased with what I've seen across the board. Okay. All right. Any questions? And we're going to wrap up soon. Don't worry. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint with you, just because there's a couple things in it that I want to point out to you that I realize lends itself to what a lot of you are doing in terms of these task forces and so on. But generally speaking, with these that we got over, questions. Okay, these have all been sent to you. I sent them out to you this morning. And as a reminder, if anyone who came in late, the PowerPoint we're going to go over has been posted. And I've put in the assignment portal this same assignment, but now entitled Final Draft. So when you do your revisions, do your final draft, just submit it the same way you did the last one, but through the new posting. Okay? We good? Okay. So let's go take a look at this, and we'll go quick. We're going to finish up here in just like 15 minutes, I think. We can all go enjoy our Sundays. Where is it? There we are. So remember, we looked at that first PowerPoint last week. That's posted as well. This is another one that I think will give you a little clearer understanding of the shape and structure of what your final report will look like. So in terms of the structure, right, get a better look here. And the reason I'm showing this again, anticipating what things you're going to need. The abstract, we've talked about, table of contents, the executive summary, I've mentioned it to you. I will go in detail and have PowerPoints and discussion about what constitutes an executive summary. List of figures, you're going to want visuals, I would imagine pretty much all of you. And then you see how the main content is broken down. schedule of work, specific, depending on what you're doing, it's a timeline. Okay, well, if you're going to organize a task force, when's it going to meet? If you're going to be organizing a protest, when? Specifics. Budget. Okay, many of your projects don't lend themselves to the most obvious types of budgets, so we'll be talking about it. The qualifications are your qualifications. And again, at this stage, and when I do my little discussion on rhetoric and ethos, pathos, and logos, and the ethos in terms of establishing your quality, a big part of that is by demonstrating that you know how to do proper research and that you write well. Okay. And the press release, which we didn't discuss, and I'm thinking this actually, usually most of the students that I do these projects with, we don't do press releases because their projects don't lend themselves to it. Yours do. So we'll talk a bit about press releases and if you want to include a press release. In terms of the basics, you're going to have a cover page. It's there just to give you an idea. Your abstract will be down here at the bottom of your cover page. Okay. And if you'll notice the way that this PowerPoint is set up, where it says abstract, it tells you, basically what an abstract is. Less than 150 words. We'll talk about it. Don't worry about it now. I want you to concentrate on the other things, but this is just getting you ready. Table of contents, okay? You're going to have that in there. The executive summary, when you want. Now's not the time to go into the details as to what an executive summary is, but it follows the table of contents. We can modify that, but it has to be there, right? This is going to be a really important document within your report. You're going to have, again, list of figures, everything looking utterly professional. Then the body, you have your introduction, the statement of problem, right? So some of you, you're going to have to, find the right way to word it, because it's not necessarily a problem like we have to fix a pipe on the 10th floor type of problem, okay? But it's a breakdown. This speaks to your headings, right? We talked about that last week. Solution criteria, and we will have to talk more about the criteria. What are your limits? What do you have to work with? Okay, what's your budget? And again, you don't have access to $1 billion here. Plan of action. How are you going to proceed in sequence? First, we're going to do this. Then we're going to. This is like a process report. Then this, then this, then this to lead to this. Okay, so you want to be thinking of the sequence of actions that you'll need to take. Schedule of work. Okay, so if you're going to have, like the task force, if you're having people working with you, when do things have to be done by in order for the next thing to happen? Okay, just to get your minds thinking along this way. Budget, okay, that we'll talk about it because the budget things might be a little more challenging for some of you, given the nature of what you're writing about. The qualifications, okay, it can be describing your student background and status, right? I'm thinking more and more, sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. I think we're going to want this in this report, where you get to explain why you should be the person to be leading this project. Okay, I'm always wary with this because what many students come in and say, yeah, but I'm just a student. What are my qualifications to do this? And I always like this because I think it gives you an opportunity to explore somewhat unorthodox qualifications that you actually may have to do it. All right. We'll see how it goes. Some of you may want to do more with this than others, depending on the project. Then the conclusion, right? We'll talk about conclusions. Conclusions are really important, not just in reports, but in essays as well. And usually they're thrown to the wayside. A lot of times, especially with essay writing in English department, yeah, your conclusion is just repeating what you said in your introduction. No. I've already read your introduction. I don't want you to repeat. I've had students who almost cut and paste from their introduction into their conclusion. No, conclusions can be extraordinarily powerful. Usually it's the last thing you're leaving your audience with. And in your cases, you're trying to persuade decision makers to work with you to take specific actions. What you leave them with, and this is where, when I get back to the rhetorical devices, probably the only place where you can really introduce in a document like this, pathos. Get them to think beyond just the dollar signs. And if it's a worthy cause, and it's only really in the conclusion that you can play with that a bit. It's a fine line. You don't want to lose your audience. Formal, academic, technical, neutral where appropriate, overall rhetorically effective. Remember this, bottom line, without becoming a politician or a used car salesman. Trust me, I will be watching. I was in sales for over 10 years, and I was really good at it, okay? So watch out, don't try to use sales tactics in an obvious way. You have to be more efficient than that, because the people you're dealing with will spot it in a flash. What I mean by that is, a brief example, a little anecdote. Years ago, I leased my car like every 4 years, so I can get a brand new car every 4 years because I love the smell of a new car. And I always go with Toyota. And then I thought I'd look at a Honda Civic, and I went to a Honda dealership, and I sat down with the guy, and I said to him right off the bat, I said, listen, I'm in sales. Okay, I know what you do. I've been doing it. I'm good at it. So I'm going to talk to you about the Honda Civic, but don't descend into an old sales pitch with me, because I don't like that. Okay, and I'm going to spot it. Just talk frankly with me. Okay, can we agree to that? He said, absolutely, I appreciate that. And he started off well until, this is years ago, when air conditioning wasn't standard in a car, until he started talking about air conditioning. I said, no, I don't need air conditioning. I don't want air conditioning. I don't want to pay for air conditioning, because it was a lot more money back then. And then he literally leaned back in his chair, says, you know, Derek, try to imagine that you're driving on the highway in the summer, and it's 38 degrees out, and you're taking your family, and I'm looking at him going, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he couldn't help himself. And I said, listen, stop. It's nice talking to you. Bye-bye. Okay? So you don't want to be obvious with the sales pitch. You have to anticipate that your audience is savvy to it. And it will hurt your credibility, because then you're descending into ineffective rhetoric. Okay? But you do still have to sell it. That's the challenge. And that's where rhetoric and how you apply it, and that rhetoric comes right out of Aristotle. Don't worry, when we discuss it, I'm not going to have you read Aristotle. I encourage you all to read Aristotle. Aristotle's great. But I will touch on specific things that really will be effective for this final report, and I would argue will be effective and helpful in everything you do when you're communicating with anybody in the professional world, academic and professional world, for the rest of your lives. Okay. There will be certain repetition in this type of a report. Something that I emphasize, because those of you who have had me as an English teacher, specifically writing essays, I jump all over people who are redundant. Okay, but certain things here, you know, the abstract and the things will repeat it. They're like little mini documents within the overall document of your final report. So don't worry about that. And that's this one. I think, again, what's nice about having this, and you can reference it anytime, is when you look at the table of contents, you get an idea of the types of things you can latch onto as you're doing your rewrites for the final draft of your proposals, if that's helpful. Okay? Questions? Are we good? I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing how these evolve. You guys are really doing well. You got some great ideas, good foundations to build on. It's gonna be a fun ride. Okay. If we're all good, I won't keep you longer. As always, as you're doing your revisions for the final draft, if you have questions, just get in touch with me. And if we can coordinate our schedules, we can arrange a one-on-one Zoom meeting. I'm happy to do that as long as we can coordinate. Good.
All right.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
guys,
you.
have a great Sunday. And remember, if you want to come on the Friday, I do this Friday at 10 o'clock and I do this Sunday at 8:30. And we're just going to continue with that. Anticipate as well, after this, we are going to move on to that review where you're going to do write the review of an article that I'm going to be posting. So anticipate that I'll be posting it by next class. And you'll have a week, no more than that. So anticipate your time. I won't give you anything that's 45 pages long. I don't think. I'll try not to. Don't worry. But it won't be some fluff. It will be a challenging article I will be giving you. All right. It's really to get you to see how you do in terms of critical reading and how you're able to extrapolate from that reading the most salient points to recognize what you're going to need to do when you're doing your own research. Okay, so that'll be coming up next week. Good?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week, if not sooner.
Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.
You too.
Bye. Milton, we'll see you tomorrow, right? 3 o'clock?
Yes. 3 o'clock.
Okay. Very good. Bye,
Yes, sir.
guys.